You don't need $150,000 to buy a property in Massachusetts. You need something like 20, maybe 30 grand to buy a place in one of the most expensive markets in the country. Watch this video. I'm going to talk about what it is that you can do to buy a place at an affordable range in one of the most expensive markets in the country, even if you've never bought real estate before. I'm going to go over exact figures for buying a $650,000 multifamily in Massachusetts. Stick around to the end and I'll show you the numbers. All right, so when you're going to buy a place, there's a lot of things you have to consider just in the realm of financing. Now, you might hear people talk about creative financing and summer finance, this and that. Let's talk about traditional loans for this video here. So there's a handful you should be aware of. There's VA loans, which is for our veterans. If you've served, 0% down. There's some key metrics there that you should be aware of, but you have a VA loan as an option. There's also FHA loans, which are first-time homebuyer loans at the end of the day, and you can put 3.5% down to buy a property, but you have to live in it for 12 months. You can also do conventional loans, 20, 25%. Those are pretty standard. There's no other restrictions. It's just you put a larger percent down, needing like probably more than 100 grand at most places in Massachusetts. Then there's also the Fannie Freddie loans, which are, you can do like 5% down loans, give or take. They're kind of like FHA for the first-time home buyers, but without less guidelines and red tape. There's even another loan option for you to consider, which is called the DSCR loan. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about really honestly just our first-time home buyers. What are the loan packages that they're going to use? Now, for an FHA owner, there's some things you need to be mindful of. So you only have to put 3.5% down on the purchase price. And I typically like to use this with multifamilies just as someone's buying an asset, but you only have to put 3.5% down. So really between like 20 and 30 grand if you're talking like $650,000. Now, another thing here to be mindful of is you have to live in the property for 12 months. That's a key metric of one of these loans, and people do check, so don't not live there. Biggest advice I can give you. To be honest, I would say 90% of our best investors at Candor honestly all started with those FHA loans. That's how I got started and how many of us also got started in an affordable manner to get involved in real estate. Now, there's some things you should be mindful of with the FHA loan besides the 12-month period. They have a minimum credit score requirement of 580 for 3.5% down. Now, if you have less than 580, you might have to put more down, so it's just good to be mindful of that for your credit. Now, I kind of mentioned this beforehand, but there's also Fannie Freddie loans where you can put 5% down. Now, there's no real commitment on the credit aspect of this, but you have to put 5% instead of 3.5%, and you still have to live there for 12 months. Now, from a purchasing standpoint, FHA loans, you have to make sure there's no peeling paint on the house. It's got to be safe. There's no broken like steps or anything like that. There's some things that the appraiser is looking for to make sure that it's considered habitable. Fannie Freddie loans, a little bit less tight restrictions on that end, but you put 5% down. Those are two great loan options for buying your first place in a very expensive market in our country. Now, we have some excellent mortgage brokers that we work with. There's different lenders that will tell you across the board, like, hey, FHA is a good fit or Fannie Freddie. You have to make sure you're looking at it from a perspective of what's going to make me the most competitive. So you have FHA loans, Fannie Freddie. They're great ways to get in your entry price in an expensive market. Now, if we're buying a $650,000 house, here's some real numbers you got to be aware of. So let's talk 3.5% here. So we're talking like $22,750 to buy a place. Now, don't forget closing costs. This is where you're going to have like, you got to pay your title and your mortgage broker. So it's typically like 2 or 3% of the property itself. So you're pretty much all in at 50 grand. Now you're probably like, oh no, there's no hope for me. I don't have 50 grand. It's not true. Your agent can help you out. If you have a really savvy agent, and I hope they do this, they try to get you closing credits, meaning maybe you offer like 10 grand more on the property, but then you ask for 10K back, meaning that you get $10,000 to cover your closing costs. It's a very common tactic that people do. They'll get all their closing costs covered. I've done it with numerous buyers. Many of our Candor agents have done it, and a lot of them do it for buildings that they buy for themselves. So if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, I can't ever buy a property, it's never going to happen. That's not true. You definitely can buy a property. You can absolutely buy one. FHA loan is great. Fannie Freddie loans are great as well. We can help you cover closing costs. There's different things that you can do to be affordable. You got to learn how to be a landlord. You got to learn how to buy an investment. And guess what? You're buying an asset, not a liability. You might do it for 2 or 3 years and say, this isn't for me. And then you move on. That's okay too. It's part of you learning and going through the process of life of, basically trying to chase that financial freedom that all of us are shooting for at Candor and many of us have accomplished. If you're listening out there and this is helpful to you, please like, share, and subscribe. We're trying to grow our network and we're trying to make videos that actually help people like you. My biggest goal at the company is to help 1 million people reach financial independence. We're going to do that through our YouTube channel. We have a school program that is for free that teaches everything that we know. We have free real estate meetups. If you couldn't tell, the word free is pretty common with us in trying to help people with financial independence. It's something that gets us out of bed every single day to help somebody like you. So if you're out there trying to buy your first property, not really sure how, reach out to us. We can give you a hand. FHA loans are great. Fannie Freddie loans are great. And we want to make sure that we give you guys the best hand possible just to be successful. Thank you so much.